the rain fell hard over Medellín, washing the neon lights into rivers of red and gold. From the balcony of a marble mansion perched high on Las Palmas Hill, Alejandro El Fuego Morales watched his city pulse with life. The fire below was his creation, a kingdom built on cocaine, cash, and corpses. Inside, music thundered. Dozens of men and women, dealers, politicians, soldiers, drank and danced. Alejandro, dressed in a sharp white suit, raised his glass. "To the ones who stayed loyal," he said, "and to the ones who didn't, may the dogs eat their bones." Laughter followed, but among the clinking glasses, one pair of eyes stayed cold. Carlos Vega, Alejandro's right-hand man. Scarred, quiet, calculating. He'd been with Alejandro since the beginning, when they were street kids slinging powder in El Poblado. Together, they had buried rivals, bribed officers, and conquered routes from Cali to Miami. But lately, Carlos had begun to see the cracks. Alejandro had grown erratic, paranoid, indulgent, burning through allies like kindling. He didn't trust anyone, not even Lucia Morales, his own sister. Lucia was once the heart of the Morales empire, handling charity fronts, managing accounts, and keeping her brother human. But as Alejandro's power grew, so did the bodies. She begged him to stop. He didn't listen. So when Captain Sofia Reyes of the Colombian National Police approached her with an offer, "Help us end this, and you walk free," Lucia agreed. The guilt had eaten her alive long enough. Reyes had hunted the Morales cartel for 5 years. She was known for her precision, cold, fearless, and obsessed. She'd lost her partner to one of Alejandro's ambushes in Barranquilla. The press called her La Fiera, the beast, but even beasts can bleed. Her team had been infiltrating the cartel's lower ranks for months, planting bugs in warehouses and tracking bribes through offshore accounts. And then came the jackpot, Lucia's message. Encrypted file received. Morales, Vega handoff. 50 million. Tomorrow midnight. Sugar plant 47, Cali outskirts. Carlos Vega stared at the ledger on his desk. $50 million in cocaine, set to move across the Panama border under Alejandro's name. But it was Vega's men who'd done the work. And now Alejandro wanted to take the credit. The crown. Everything. That night, Vega met with his own crew. Men he trusted from the Vega cartel, a splinter group forming under his nose. Among them was Mateo Rojas, a former army sniper turned assassin. "We hit them during the exchange," Vega said. "When the smoke clears, Alejandro's gone. I take his place, and the cops will never know who pulled the trigger." But the cops did know, because Lucia had already forwarded the plan to Sofia. The stage was set. The sugar plant lay silent under the moonlight, a skeleton of rusted machinery and hollow silos. Trucks lined the yard, headlights dimmed. Alejandro's men scanned the shadows, rifles tight. Lucia stood beside her brother, her heart pounding. "You sure Vega's coming?" Alejandro asked. "He'll come," Lucia said softly. "He always does." And he did. Carlos Vega rolled in with a convoy of black SUVs. His smile was as sharp as a knife. "Mi hermano," he greeted, opening his arms. Alejandro didn't move. They stood face to face, two wolves circling the same kill. "You think you can betray me?" Alejandro said. "Betray you?" Vega chuckled. "No, Alejandro. I'm setting you free." That was the signal. Gunfire erupted. The first bullets shattered glass and bone. Men screamed. Engines roared. Lucia ducked behind a truck as explosions tore through the plant. Barrels of sugar dust ignited, turning the night into a storm of fire. Vega's men advanced, ruthless and precise, while Alejandro fought back with fury, gunning down traitors in bursts of light. Then, helicopter blades. "Operación Firestorm," shouted a voice through the radio. Police floodlights split the darkness as Sofia Reyes' tactical unit stormed in, black-clad commandos rappelling from the sky. The air filled with chaos. Cartel against cartel, cartel against cops. Sofia herself led the charge, kicking open doors, barking orders in Spanish. She wanted Alejandro alive. But in the smoke and confusion, Lucia grabbed her brother's hand. "Follow me now." They fled through a service tunnel beneath the plant, an old escape route from Escobar's era. The roar of gunfire faded behind them as they stumbled into the jungle, breathless. Then, under the flicker of her sleeve, Alejandro saw it. A small blinking red light. "What is that?" Lucia froze. His voice turned cold. "Is that a tracker?" She couldn't lie. Her tears said everything. "I'm sorry, hermano. I thought I could save you. Save me." His voice broke, fury and heartbreak colliding. "You destroyed me." He raised his pistol, trembling. But before he could pull the trigger, helicopters thundered overhead. Flashlights swept the trees. Lucia screamed. "They're here!" Alejandro fired once. Not at her, but at the tracker, shattering it. Then he disappeared into the jungle's darkness as police closed in. Sofia arrived seconds later, scanning the trail. She found Lucia sobbing in the mud. No sign of Alejandro, only the faint smell of smoke and cordite, and a single whisper in the wind. El Fuego lives. Back in the city, Vega limped from the burning ruins of the sugar plant. His face streaked with soot and blood. He looked over the bodies, over the flames that devoured the empire he'd just stolen. He lit a cigar, exhaled slowly, and muttered, "The king is dead. Long live the king." But deep down he knew the fire wasn't done burning. The jungle had swallowed him whole. For 3 long months, the world believed Alejandro El Fuego Morales was dead. Newspapers printed his obituary, rivals divided his routes, and his enemies toasted to his ghost. But deep in the misty mountains outside Medellín, Alejandro still breathed, broken, scarred, and alive. The once feared king of Colombia's underworld now hid in the ruins of an abandoned coca refinery, surrounded by silence and memory. His body was weakened, his empire gone. But the fire that earned him his name still burned within, hotter than ever. Every night he replayed the same faces in his mind. His sister Lucia, who betrayed him out of love, and Carlos Vega, the man who had stolen everything. Medellín had a new ruler now, El Lobo, the wolf. Carlos Vega controlled the streets with military precision, a colder kind of cruelty than Alejandro ever showed. He didn't crave attention or chaos. He wanted order, absolute and unbreakable. His soldiers patrolled the barrios like ghosts. His money moved through banks that even the government couldn't trace. And those who whispered the name El Fuego disappeared by sunrise. But Vega's empire had one problem. Ghosts don't die quietly. Across the countryside, Vega's operations began collapsing. Shipments vanished. Warehouses exploded. Men he trusted turned up dead with the same word carved into their skin. Fuego. It was as if the dead king himself had risen from the ashes. And in truth, he had. Alejandro Morales had returned. Hidden in the jungle, he plotted each strike with methodical precision, turning what was left of his resources into weapons of revenge. But even a ghost needed help. So he sought out the one person who wanted Vega destroyed as much as he did, Captain Sofia Reyes. When she saw him alive, she didn't reach for her gun. She just stared. The man she'd hunted for years was standing before her, thinner, older, but very much alive. He told her the truth, that Vega's power reached beyond the cartel. Politicians, generals, bankers, all of them were feeding from the wolf's hand. Killing Vega wouldn't just avenge a betrayal, it would expose a nation's corruption. Reyes had lost everything after the failed Operation Firestorm. Her badge, her reputation, and her partner. But this chance, as dangerous as it was, offered her redemption. Against every instinct, she agreed to work with the man she'd sworn to destroy. Together, they waged a silent war. Alejandro's men struck Vega's labs and burned his cocaine fields, while Reyes fed intelligence to sympathetic officers still within the force. Slowly, Vega's grip began to slip. Fear spread through his cartel like a virus. Vega slept with a gun under his pillow. His nights were restless. Every sound, every shadow felt like the ghost of Morales. He began executing his own lieutenants for imagined disloyalties, driving terror into his own ranks. The empire he'd stolen began to rot from the inside. When word reached him that a convoy carrying $30 million worth of product had been hijacked in the mountains, Vega snapped. He traced the ambush to a location known only to one man, Alejandro Morales. And when his scouts reported movement near La Catedral, an old fortress prison once ruled by Pablo Escobar himself, Vega decided to end it. He mobilized everything he had, 50 men, armored trucks, helicopters. If Morales truly lived, he would die again that night. But Alejandro and Sofia had planned for that. They knew Vega's arrogance. They wanted him drawn out, alone and desperate. As Vega's convoy climbed the winding roads to La Catedral under the silver light of the moon, a storm rolled in from the valley. Thunder cracked like gunfire. By the time Vega's men reached the compound, they were walking into a trap. The night exploded in fire. Mortars launched from the tree-line. Trucks went up in flames. Bullets rained from every direction. Morales loyalists and Reyes' covert team attacked in perfect synchrony. Soldiers and ghosts fighting side by side. Vega's men screamed through the smoke, their formation collapsing under the chaos. And in the middle of it all, through the roar of gunfire, Alejandro Morales emerged. Dressed in black, face streaked with dirt and blood. He moved through the inferno like it belonged to him. Vega saw him from the upper balcony and felt his stomach turn to ice. He shouted orders, tried to rally his men, but the line had already broken. Explosions tore through the compound. Police reinforcements, called in secretly by Reyes, cut off any escape. Vega realized too late that he was surrounded, not by enemies, but by the ghosts he'd made. Inside the fortress, amidst the fire and falling debris, Vega and Morales finally came face to face. Years of friendship, betrayal, and blood condensed into one brutal moment. Vega sneered through the smoke, mocking the man who once called him brother. He told Alejandro that Lucia was still alive, that he had found her, used her, and broken her spirit. Alejandro's heart froze. For a moment, rage overtook reason. He attacked with everything he had. The two men crashed through glass and concrete, trading blows with animal fury. Blood splattered across the balcony. The jungle below burned red. Vega reached for his gun, pressing the barrel to Alejandro's chest. But before he could fire, a single shot cracked through the air. The bullet came from behind. Vega's body jerked backward, his eyes wide in shock. At the doorway stood Sofia Reyes, gun still smoking in her hand. She didn't say a word. Vega stumbled, choking on blood, and fell over the railing, disappearing into the fire below. The battle ended not long after. The police secured the compound. The remaining cartel soldiers threw down their weapons. The reign of the wolf was over. Alejandro stood at the edge of the balcony, staring into the flames that consumed La Catedral. Sofia approached him slowly. She had done her duty. Vega was dead, and the evidence they'd gathered would bring down half the corrupt elite. But the victory felt hollow. She looked at Alejandro, at the man who had lost everything. He handed her a small USB drive. Vega's entire network, he said quietly. Use it. Burn the rest. She wanted to arrest him, to finish what she'd started years ago. But something in his eyes stopped her. They were tired, empty, yet somehow at peace. Without another word, Alejandro stepped forward, into the burning ruins. The flames swallowed him, and Sofia didn't follow. She just watched as the fire rose higher, taking the last shadow of El Fuego with it. Weeks later, the headlines screamed of victory. The Vega cartel was destroyed. Sofia Reyes was reinstated, celebrated as the woman who ended Colombia's bloodiest war. And in a quiet corner of Spain, Lucia Morales lived under a new name, far from the ghosts of her past. But in the mountains outside Medellín, the villagers spoke of something else. They said that at night, when the jungle caught the scent of smoke, you could see a lone figure walking through the ruins of La Catedral, his face scarred, his eyes glowing in the light of dying embers. They called him El Hombre de Ceniza, the man of ash. And when the wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of burnt sugar and gunpowder, it whispered the same words that once made the underworld tremble. El Fuego Nunca Muere. The fire never dies.